Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to another
Hello.
episode of Pod Snipe Celly. My name is Dan Bradley, and look who's back in the chair tonight. It's our good buddy Joel Fernino. Joel,
Hello.
I feel like we haven't talked in probably about a month now, and it's been a
Yes.
minute here. You were uh, you
It's
were
been a
at a
while.
wedding for our last show. Thank you to Luke Morse who took your seat in the chair for a week. But you are back, and it's a new year. It's a new you. How was the holiday break, my friend?
That was great. It does feel good to be back. It feels like it's been an eternity. But yes, you are right. I was at my cousin's wedding, my cousin Sam. Congrats to her and her new husband Craig. They
Cheers.
sometimes listen, so yes, I will hopefully she's listening. If not, I'm gonna yell at her. But I have to thank her and Craig. They threw one hell of an awesome wedding in Key West, Florida. So that's awesome.
Hard to beat that.
Yeah, that's fun fact. That is my first time in my entire life being east of Ohio.
Oh wow.
I've done the West Coast stuff. I've done Cancun. I've never gone east of Ohio though. Anyway, that was a blast. Holidays were great to still be able to, throughout you know, the great surge, whatever number surge we're on at this point, during Omicron Persei 8 variant.
Mm.
I hope so. I hope someone gets my Futurama joke. Still got to spend time with some family on Christmas. Spend time with my girlfriend on New Year's Eve. It was good. How about you? How was the holiday season and the New Year's?
Yeah, things were good here. Things were kind of busy. I actually did have COVID right before the holidays, so
That's
thankfully I was able
right.
to. I got better. I'm feeling much better than where I was, but it was not good
Please
for
tell
for a
me.
while
Please tell
there.
me, bourbon still tastes the same now, right?
You know what? I haven't had bourbon in a long time. I will have to
Oh,
try it again here soon,
oh
but
boy, oh
we'll
boy.
we'll have to wait and see on that one a little bit. So, um, but doing better. Did get to celebrate Christmas with my fiance, her dad, and her brother as well. Had a nice prime rib dinner on Christmas. So I mean, life was good. We had all sorts of good food throughout the day. My fiance was just a rock star in the kitchen. So um, all sorts of sides and desserts. I mean, it was fantastic. We had leftovers for like half a week after that. So always love the holiday
Best.
season. Love the food. Love the time with family. Um, New Year's as well. I barely made it to midnight. I'm getting old, man.
What the hell do you mean you barely made it to midnight?
I mean, I'm working every day.
My mother
I
stayed up till almost 4 a.m. and she's 62, and I hope
Okay,
she
but your
didn't hear me
mother's a
say that.
saint. Your mother's a different
She's
breed.
she's amazing. Yes,
She's
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 like the
incredible.
Terminator. But anyway,
Well, let's get right into the show tonight. For those of you who are watching, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter, we want to thank you for joining us. If you have something you want to share throughout the show tonight, we are live. You can ask questions throughout the show. If you have a spicy take you want to share, a trade prediction, some
spicy.
bold pick that you want to make, you are certainly welcome to do so. Drop a comment below. Let us know. We are, of course, sponsored by the Noop Sports and the Sports 2.0 Network uh, programs. So thank you to Noop Sports and the Sports 2.0 Network for making this possible tonight. And Joel, I think with all of the things that we have not been able to cover, we had the league shut down for about a week with all of the
2
COVID
weeks
variants.
actually.
Some teams are still dealing with postponements. The Wild didn't play last night because they were once again postponed. We have missed out on a lot of hockey here, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't start with the Winter Classic. I mean,
You would be remiss.
I would be. You probably. I mean, you
No, it's
enjoyed
the
it as
Winter
a
Classic.
fan, but I mean, it's different when the Hawks aren't playing in their 19th Winter Classic in 5 years. It's
and their
it's
1 in
different.
19 record in outdoor
They're
games
yeah
anyway.
yeah 17-2. They had a couple of overtime losses in
Hey,
there,
we
didn't
won
they?
one. We beat
One
Pittsburgh.
one
We
one
beat
something.
we beat Pittsburgh at Soldier Field, and that season we had more wins at Soldier Field than the Bears did. Anyway,
That's pretty incredible. The Bears were so bad that year. Evergreen statement. Not quite, but all right. Can you tell our teams are playing each other this week too? We got Vikings and Bears on the horizon this weekend.
oh
So
yeah, and it means absolutely nothing for either of our teams.
absolutely nothing. I mean, I was mentioning this to somebody the other day. Like, This might be one of the first Week 17 games where, regardless of the outcome, both coaches get fired.
Week 18, actually.
Or Week 18, I guess.
I know, right?
Season finale, and regardless of a win-loss or tie, they could tie. That would be gross. That would be an appropriate way to end it.
That would just be ridiculous.
It would be the most appropriate way to end things. Have both coaches fired after a tie. We think it's coming. But we're going to focus on hockey here tonight. That's enough football talk. The Winter Classic.
We'll start a football podcast in a year.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But the Winter Classic, I just had an absolute blast watching it. I mean, it was, from a visual standpoint, it was just phenomenal. And I wish I could have been there. I would have been absolutely freezing the entire time. I think the temperature at puck drop was like 10 below at puck drop, and it just got colder throughout the night. Yeah. So shout out to anybody who was there actually outdoors, the entire time, braving the elements to watch that game. It was just brutally cold and not necessarily great weather for a hockey game, and yet they packed the house. It was sold out completely, and not just sold out, but I mean, you could tell people were there. People stuck it out for the whole game, and it turned into a pretty good game of hockey. 6-4 final for the St. Louis Blues over the Minnesota Wild in that one. Joel, what stood out to you during the Winter Classic?
That had to have been the highest scoring Winter Classic, I think, right?
It was, yes.
That was the highest.
Set the record, highest scoring Winter Classic.
6-4. I think when I unfortunately missed some of it, but when I did catch a little bit of it, like that was the biggest surprise to me. Like a 6-4, just the score of 6-4 in general. Every single outdoor game, whether it was the Hawks playing in them or the ones that were out in California with like the Ducks and the Kings, like it's usually a very lower scoring affair. Like the highest goal count that I remember, I think was like a 4-3 or 3-2.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 7 combined goals in a 4-3 type of game.
But, my bad.
I mean, they blew that one out of the water.
One of our not the Winter Classic, but one of our what did they used to call them? The Stadium Series. Yeah. The one I mentioned at Soldier Field. That one we beat the Penguins 5-1. So that was another high scoring affair.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Stadium Series game that you and I went to, the Wild won that one like
6-1. 6-1. So yes, I remember that. So thanks for reminding me of that one.
Unfortunately, the Wild no longer undefeated in outdoor games, but I mean, they still put on a heck of a show. I thought the way that they did the ceremonial puck drops around the rink with various representatives from Minnesota sports was super cool.
That was cool.
The broadcast itself was phenomenal, and the game was just all over the place. I mean, we had some weird goals scored in that game. Pitlick's putting the puck out front from behind the net, off the stick, off the mask of Bennington and into the net. We had a couple different goals that looked like they got deflected off a defenseman or off gear and into the net. But man, did the Blues look good. I mean, that is a solid looking team headed down the stretch.
I don't want to talk about it, but yes, you are right. I thought that they were just going to kind of sit mediocre. Like, yeah, we're going to make the playoffs, but we're not going to do anything. Like, yeah, that team looks like they're ready to try and make another run. And they could definitely, oh God, it just stings. It stings the tongue of me to say it, but I think they can do it. And that, I don't want to see that again. But anyway, it was cool. Like I said, like I think the score was the biggest thing that stood out, especially from this fact that I found. So take a guess how many outdoor games the NHL has hosted.
Oh boy.
If you want, I can give you an over under.
They've got to be right around 20, right? With all the Stadium Series in addition to the Winter, higher than 20. Oh yeah, because they're supposed to have the Heritage Classics in there too, and just hit me with it.
To this date, they've hosted 33.
33, okay.
And that was the 33rd game, and we were talking about the temperature. It actually officially was marked down at negative 5.7. And that was the only game of the 33 to ever go sub-zero.
HP already chirping you here, and the Blackhawks were in 30 of them.
Hey, when you were the gold standard for a decade, you get rewarded. That's my response to that, HP.
Anyway. HP did also say that Kyrou kid looked incredible.
He
Yes,
did.
he did.
That
Monster game
snipe
for Kyrou.
that snipe that he had, I rewatched it right before the show. You heard my response to it live. I was like, my God, that go in, that you can't go more top corner than that. I
No.
think that was the fifth goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the fifth goal
Yep.
that the Blues scored. Yeah.
Yeah, 4-point game for him. I mean, Kyrou just looks incredible. Like he is a star in the making right now, and someone who last year we kind of started to see him knocking on the door of being like a solid top 6 forward. This year, he's just kicked the door down. I mean, he is on an absolute tear right now. Um, I'm trying to look up his stats here. Should have had that in front of me because we were talking about him. But 12 goals, 20 assists this season, 32 points in 29 games, and he's 23. Like he's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's fast, he's big, he uses his body well. Like watching him skate with the puck, like he does a good job of using his body to shield the puck, but also he's still got a good release on his shot too. Just sneaky, and I mean, he can play anywhere in that Blues lineup too. Like they had him with Tarasenko a little bit. They've had him with O'Reilly. They've kind of bounced him around everywhere from the first to the third line. And it doesn't matter where he is. He's sparking offense. He's producing points. And the Blues don't necessarily even really play their third line like kind of a traditional checking line. Like they can have that checking line, but they've still got the offensive skill that you don't necessarily see from like a third line. I mean, the depth is solid with that team.
And still, though, you guys are still a great team. You fought back. You made it close. I was telling you the I think it was your third goal, the Zuccarello to my boy Hartman. That gave me some flashbacks. That exact play, that little fake shot, and no one in that arena was like he's gonna pass it. Like no one knew except him he was gonna pass that puck, and it gave me flashbacks to Brad Richards to Kane. So you guys are. I think there is going to be an inevitable meeting in the playoffs between your Wild and the Blues. Who takes that? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a later episode.
well, here's the thing: the Wild were 2-4-2 against the Blues last year in the regular season, and that was the first meeting between them this year, and that was another loss for Minnesota. I mean, looking at how they match up against each other right now, they kind of don't. So that's probably a good place to segue.
Just remember, when playoff comes, the regular season means nothing.
That's true. There is a lot of truth to that. So we've got home cooking, a segment we like to do here, talking about our hometown teams. And Joel, you were actually at the Chicago Blackhawks game last night against Colorado, a back and forth game throughout, and you got to witness Cale Makar firsthand. I mean, you can't even be mad about that kind of an overtime game-winning goal. Holy crap, is Makar good at hockey?
Oh yeah, no, he's the game in general too was a fun game. Shout out to my girlfriend Kate, she got us the tickets for as a Christmas present. But literally, like, it just, I knew the Avalanche would be a fun team to watch play, and obviously it's like, okay, I want us to win, but I really thought we were going to get completely destroyed. Like I was texting you during the first period. I'm like, we're down 2-0. If not for Fleury being, the GOAT.
You were in panic mode.
Why not? We had 5. We got outshot in the first period, 14-5. And Fleury, I didn't watch Sports Center last night, but Fleury probably had one of the top 10 plays because of his save. It could have been like 5-0 by the end of the first, and we wouldn't be talking about this close, exciting game we are right now. But no, aside from the first period, like, it was a lot of fun, and just Colorado is so fun to watch. I was excited. I'm excited to see my team always, sure, but like when I saw it was the Avs, I was like, I'm excited, and they're getting back into the form they're supposed to be in just in time, coming out of this 2-week COVID break that we took, or roughly 2 week, I think 12 days. They're just so fun to watch. Every time Nathan McKinnon had the puck, I made sure I was like dialed in. I'm not doing anything else. I want to see what he does. And his speed, like, we all know he's arguably the fastest skater, one of at least, top 5 fastest skater in the league. And you don't actually understand that until you see him live.
Yeah.
He is flying around the offensive zone. defensive zone everywhere, but like especially for us in the offensive zone, he'd be rounding the boards in the offensive zone, and it's just like we're not going to strip him. Like he's going to have to lose the puck for us to get this out. Like you're not going to catch him. And friggin' Cale Makar, like you said, it was a close game. DeBrincat put us up 3-2, and I hate most referees. They missed a high sticking, which then led to the tying goal, but we'll get into that later. It was a great game. I actually had, if anyone follows me on Twitter, which you probably don't, I'm not that fun on Twitter, but I can be. I did have a tweet of, my main takeaways from the game. And I mean, the top one, you mentioned it. Cale Makar is a cheat code. That goal was disgusting. Like we had some people around our section like, oh, what the hell was that? And I'm like, we kind of had an interesting angle to it, like live, but rewatching it, I was like, how am I going to be mad about that? Like, no one deserves that treatment. Oh,
HP with the chirps
HP.
again tonight. Blackhawks fan complaining about the referees can't be.
I'm giving you homework, HP. Go look up the play I'm talking about, and you will agree with me. But
do that after the show, though. Don't do it now.
Do that after the show. But I mean, my big takeaways from the game, I mean, it kind of goes like Cale Makar is a cheat code. Marc-Andre Fleury is the GOAT and will be, I think, when it's all said and done. That might be a hot take, but I think it's the case. Jonathan Toews can still put the team on his back. He was all over the ice. He was a post away from winning it in overtime. He had one. Just a laughing face.
Emoji. Yep.
I'm funny. I know I am. Anyway, so is Dan. Anyway, between that and then I got Alex DeBrincat is a true all-star, and I'm not going to ever hear an argument ever again. If there's any haters of him on Twitter, you don't know hockey.
Who's hating DeBrincat?
Nobody, but I'm saying, and it's always funny to hear like his scouting report when he got drafted, like, he's too short to play in the NHL. Yeah, that's never going to work.
He's the laziest take. It always is too short to play in the league. It's such a lazy take.
He's in his 5th season, and he has eclipsed 20 goals every single season, and 2 of those 5 he's eclipsed 40. So I don't want to hear it. Anyway. And other than that, I know it's a take on last night showed me midway through the season, actually a little bit more than midway through the season now, even with postponements. My final take is, look, the Hawks are still a talented team, and they're talented enough and have enough heart, and now decently coached enough now that they got the garbage out of there, that they're going to stay in pretty much every game, but they just don't have the depth. They don't have the talent depth to get the W. So, I mean, I'm probably too early here, but remember our shows of me saying they could still make one of those a wild card is not going to happen. The Hawks are not making the playoffs. They're going to be sellers at the trade deadline, but that I'm not going to get into that yet.
Well, we'll put a pin in that one for a minute because I want to get your thoughts on a couple of potential trade pieces with the Blackhawks, including just today.
Oh yeah,
trading Alex Nylander to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Was it Sam Lafferty was the player coming back?
That's the player coming back.
I have not done my homework. I have not done anything research-wise on Lafferty. What is there to know on Sam Lafferty?
All I know right now, as of just a lot of the beat writers and such for the Hawks that I follow on Twitter, is that he's a bottom 6 guy. He's more of a grinder type, and he recently has been having trouble breaking into the lineup in general. So whatever. He's a guy. Like that's pretty much it. Alex Nylander was just a guy, but we decided to trade Henry Jokiharju for him because Stan Bowman's an idiot. But
that move didn't make sense to me because like you could tell with the Hawks core at that point, the Hawks core was getting older defensively, and the bigger needs to me were getting rid of Keith, not necessarily getting rid of Keith and Seabrook, but moving out from under their contracts. But they weren't necessarily fitting on the blue line either. Needing to get younger and faster, you have a solid prospect in Jokiharju, and then trading him for Nylander, supposed to be scoring winger, which the Hawks have never had a scoring winger. That's never something that they've ever had. So I can see why they would
Never.
jump at the opportunity to get a scoring winger onto that team.
It's no, and you make such a great point. Like it's ridiculous. The defensive core was aging, but actually it's funny you mentioned it too. I can drop a little small fun fact on you that I learned today. That's I kind of knew this back then, but it really did get like reconfirmed and re-brought up today. It got bumped by Mark Lazarus. Actually, it was that Yoki Haru actually was like, I think we remember like Coach Q would if he didn't like someone, like he would try, but then he would make it known, like, look, he's not working, and you would trust his judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But he would at least give a chance. Thing is he actually loved Yoki Haru. He loved the pick. He loved his development, and he loved putting him in when he got moved, and Colleton got moved in by Puppet Master Bowman. Actually, Colleton was the one that didn't like Yoki Haru, and that's actually what was one of the things that led to him getting traded for so little.
Yeah, that trade still, like, you and I day of are like, why is Chicago making this trade? It doesn't make sense. And immediately, I mean, you hated that move. You were not in a good mood.
I can do an entire episode on what I hate about Bowman's trades and such, and actually, it's a little bit of a tease for later on in the show of a certain 2-minute segment that we do. Anyway.
Oh boy, that's interesting.
How about your team? How are the Wild doing aside from the Winter Classic? They're still sitting pretty up at. I think they're in second.
They are tied for third with the Avalanche, who moved up with that extra point in overtime last night. Colorado,
sorry.
We
tried.
Look at the top of this division right now. Nashville is in first, 8-1-1 in their last 10. St. Louis a point back, 7-1-2 in their last 10. Colorado 3 points behind St. Louis, 8-1-1 in their last 10. It is a good Central Division. And then Minnesota 5-4-1 in their last 10, and they've lost 5 straight. Part of that too is injuries across the lineup. Losing Joel Eriksson forward, the top center on the team, that one hurts. Losing Jonas Brodin, the best defensive defenseman that the Wild have, that one hurts. Jared Spurgeon has been out for, I think, 5, maybe 6 weeks now. He had a leg fracture. Like, I think it was just like, it wasn't like a clean break, but like a hairline fracture. It was bad enough that it's going to keep him out of the lineup while you're recovering. So he's out. Cam Talbot, as we kind of touched on earlier with the Winter Classic, he is hurt. So Kaapo Kähkönen is going to be the guy for the next couple weeks in net. Wild have had to make a lot of roster moves to kind of balance things out. But the good news with those roster moves is they are calling up their top 2 prospects who are going to debut in Boston tomorrow night. Center Marco Rossi and winger Matthew Boldy. That is going to be a big wake-up call to the rest of this Wild roster.
To our listeners, don't be fooled by Dan's excitement. He hated the Rossi pick when that first came through.
Okay,
I have text messages proving it.
I didn't hate the Rossi pick. I just really wanted Cole Perfetti. I thought he was going to be a better fit for the Wild. I thought he was going to be the better player of the two, and I still do. But that doesn't mean I'm not excited for Marco Rossi. I mean, the kid is just incredible. You watch what he does. His skating and edge work is fantastic. His hands are phenomenal. He's a good shooter. He's a good scorer. He's someone who can make plays all over the ice. Plus Matthew Boldy, who, again, a pick that I was generally pleased with, but not like the most excited for. And that was because I was mad that we passed on Cole Caulfield. I thought Caulfield was a player that I wanted the Wild to draft. Yeah. But again, I'm still excited to see what Boldy can do. Boldy is the only top 20 pick from his draft year that hasn't played in the NHL yet. So I really want to see what he can do. Plus, he's getting to debut against Boston, which was his team growing up. He's a Massachusetts kid, went to Boston College. To get to play his first game against Boston is just a pretty cool story to begin with. And I mean, it was really, it's such a cool story, the way that it's kind of working out. And both of them are going to get time on the power play. Rossi is on power play 1 and Boldy is on power play 2. And they asked head coach Dean Evison about it. By the way, Dean Evison just getting a coaching extension, the entire Wild coaching staff. And Evison didn't want to announce his until everybody was locked up for a couple more years. Evison, very bluntly, was asked about Rossi and Boldy being on the power play, and he said, well, the guys we've had there have sucked, so yeah, we're going to throw them on there. I mean, you love the candidness with Dean. Like, he's not messing around, and he knows there's a lot of offensive talent coming through the ranks right now, even with Beckman, with Connor Dewar, who may crack the lineup tomorrow in Boston. The injuries, Nick Bjugstad is hurt. He left practice the other day. Sounds like he might be out for a couple weeks here. Took a slash on the hands, it sounds like. So, I mean, that's never good. But he left immediately, and Matt Zuccarello immediately went after him to apologize and make sure he was good to go. But, like, that's,
sorry.
Getting injured from a teammate. I mean, you never, ever, ever want to have that happen in practice.
Yeah.
So that's one to keep an eye on there, too, with Minnesota. But they're hanging around in the Central, which we thought they were going to do. Colorado looking like they're going to turn it on in the second half and kind of figure things out. They're going to be good. St. Louis in the mix. Nashville, like, out of nowhere, is in first place. Like, it doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. But the Wild, I'm very happy with where my team is at right now. If it ends up being a year where, the Wild look like the front runners in the Central for probably until the injuries started to happen. Like, when Spurgeon went down, it was just kind of, okay, well, let's just kind of hold water until he gets back. Then losing Brodin and Eriksson Ek, I mean, that's going to be tough. That's going to put them in a bit of a hole. I'm going to be realistic about that. And losing Talbot too, goaltending depth is a bit of a concern for the Wild. So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they made a move to try and add some goaltending depth, maybe before the trade deadline, maybe around the trade deadline. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But that's something to keep an eye on as well. And you better believe I'm going to be glued to the TV tomorrow night watching Rossi and Boldy make their Minnesota Wild debuts. It's fun. The Wild have not had prospects to this degree of hype since probably Mikael Granlund making his debut and Matt Dumba making his debut. I mean, it has been a while for Wild fans to get excited about a prospect. Let alone to have two.
It's kind of a opposite of the joke. It's not even a joke, like the joke you made about, like, when have the Hawks ever had a high-scoring winger ever? Haha, whoa! Like, for you guys, that's actually true.
Yeah, like,
you guys have never had a high-scoring winger or a high-scoring center. Like, you got Kirill Kaprizov.
Kaprizov is our high-scoring winger, but
but now
you had Marian Gaborik for a while, but then Gaborik hurt and traded. Or I think he left in free agency. The Wild weren't going to give him the money that he was looking for coming off of all those injuries, not knowing how he was going to play. Granlund, not necessarily high-scoring winger. Zucker supposed to be, but not necessarily. Niederreiter supposed to be, but never really fit that. Boldy looks ahead of where those guys were at when they were getting called up.
Exactly.
Rossi, Wild have never had a true offensive-minded one center. They've had Mikko Koivu, who very, very good 2C, elite defensive 1C, but not the offensive firepower that was needed for the team.
Right.
Rossi looks like he can be that guy a couple years down the road. We got a question in here. Would you consider Gaborik high scoring? Definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. He probably
just wasn't there long enough.
He wasn't there long enough, and he's since been passed by Zach Parise and I think Granlund on scoring lists as well. But Parise definitely would consider Gaborik, high scoring and probably the biggest offensive threat the Wild had prior to Kirill Kaprizov.
Parise, I would have argued. Parise, I would have argued like he was high scoring, quote. I'm doing air quotes for anyone listening. Mm-hmm. But he was kind of like we're still in home cooking, so I'm going to make the comparison. He was like your Jonathan Taves, just at wing. Like he's gonna score, and he's gonna score a good amount. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's playing that 200-foot
consistent
game.
30-goal scorer. But all over the ice, and a little bit of a setup guy too. But he was looking like a 50 goal scorer when he was with New Jersey. Came to Minnesota and never really
What
came
we
to that
should have
same
said,
level.
what we should have said is you guys have never had the flashy superstar scorer.
Yes, that's fair to say.
That's where Kaprizov is
Gaborik,
going right now.
yes, Gaborik was a great scorer, but he wasn't the game-breaking superstar that Kirill Kaprizov is. Like I'm just going to say it objectively, Kirill Kaprizov,
you can
probably a better player than Gaborik in his prime. You put the two against each other, it's close, but I think Kaprizov has the edge.
I like to argue, but no, I can't argue with that. I would jump on that take right away. And you know how much I love hot takes.
Definitely. And speaking of hot takes, we're going to segue here into some top storylines. This is an idea that you pitched, so thank you for producing this show. It probably as much as I did today, to be honest.
I had to work overtime for missing a month.
This has been a weird week. Yeah, I ran with Luke Morse when we did the show right before the holiday break, and you were gone for that one. So yeah, you kind of produced like half our show tonight. So thank you for that. Top storylines for the 2022 portion of the season, the New Year news, we're going to call it. And Joel, you have some ideas here for some stories to keep an eye on here, some potential trades, some potential hirings, firings. What are you looking forward to the second half of this season, and what news items do you have your eye on?
News items, I'll get to that. It's not too much that I do have. It's kind of like a projected, I guess, discussion that I've been thinking about now, I guess for a little while. It didn't make sense to bring it up until now, but like I kind of compare it to the NFL in this sense too. And I'm curious your take. Like I look at the standings and I've been following. We've all been following them. We've been following all these teams that are sitting, first, second, third in their divisions. I put the team on my back, though. That's Dan's quote. I can't take credit for that one. But I'm curious to see, and I'm excited to see, like, will we finally start to see any teams break out as that clear cut, like, yes, they are going to go to the Stanley Cup and they are most likely going to win the Stanley Cup. I feel like this is the first year in a while, and like I said, it's like the NFL. There's no teams right now where I'm sitting here like last year, the Chiefs, like they're going to win the Super Bowl. They didn't,
right?
Get it,
yeah,
but like
Chiefs and Tampa Bay, we kind of knew end of the regular season. That's probably what it was going to be.
Exactly, and like in this case, we knew 2 years ago and last year, we knew Tampa Bay was going to most likely make it back to the Cup final. Did I know they were going to do back to back? Maybe, maybe not, but. Was I surprised? No.
We knew they'd be in the mix.
We knew Tampa was a wagon, and they're going to be a wagon. They still are a wagon. But this year, and it's not a COVID year either, so there are no excuses. I know we had the 2-week break, but they're going to fit the 82 games in. I'm really interested to see who, if anyone, if any team breaks out as that clear cut, like, yep, I'm going to put my safe money on X or Y team to win the Stanley Cup. And right now, I think we have way too many of those teams right now. To
There's
me,
a lot of parity in this league right now.
I mean, you touched on it. I didn't want to segue too early, but you touched on it like in the West in the West to start, or in the Central to drill down a little further. Like it's there's a first and fourth place are separated by 4 points. Right, like, and right beneath that, 6 points separates the top 5 teams in the division or in the wild card as well. So like, and it's not like, and even the teams that aren't currently in a playoff position right now, like it's 1 point back, 2 points back, maybe 3 points back, right? And then obviously it drops off when you hit us. But anyway,
and in the East, look at the Metro division where you've got the Rangers and the Caps tied at 48 points. Carolina, who started the year red hot,
destroying everything.
They're 1 point back. So the difference between first and third is 1 point in the Metro.
Yeah, and you see all these teams, like these breakout teams too. Like Detroit's still definitely in the mix, which is early to say. You knew they'd get there, but like that's early. I will call myself on this one. I did call it. I said Boston was going to start moving up slowly, and sure enough, they're doing it. Boston. You got. I would say, Philly's making a case, right? And, you still got Edmonton once they get, McDavid back from COVID and they figure their stuff out, they'll get back into it. Like, and they're in it right now, but they'll start to rise back up. I want to point out the Anaheim Ducks are in second place in the Pacific.
That is still so wild to me,
That's
given
hilarious.
just how bad they were last year. I mean, that was a team that set a record for the worst power play in the history of the league. That offense was not there. And you look at what they're doing this year with Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras and Sonny Milano, all these guys stepping up in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And then you see Vegas, who is in first, and Vegas doesn't have Mark Stone in the lineup right now. They don't have Jack Eichel in the lineup. Their big horses are still in the barn, man. Like that is Vegas is gonna be a wagon down the stretch.
And that's my point. And that's my point I'm trying to get to. Like there are probably 6-7 teams you could name right now. Like, yeah, I could see them making the Cup final, but there's no clear cut one or two.
He says Florida Panthers or Carolina Hurricanes.
And
I'm completely with you on Florida.
Yeah,
I think Florida's going all the way. I said that at the beginning of the year. Our first show, I said that, and I stand by that. I think Florida's winning it this year. But like you said, Joel, like it's close. Like you look at that division too. Tampa Bay has played 2 more games than Florida. They're a point up.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Maple Leafs, who have been without Mitch Marner for like a month now.
Yep.
And they're 5 points out of first. They're going to get him back. They're solid when they're healthy.
Right. It's just funny because and it's like same thing. I heard this on a different podcast I was listening to. It's like like what if they were talking about like the chances of Tampa three-peating, and this is kind of what sparked this first 2022 thing in my mind. Like what if they three-peat it? Like, are they the greatest dynasty in the the history of the league? Which I would disagree with, but that's an off-season topic. But
that is another.
That's definitely a topic we can talk about.
The Canadians back in the day, but...
right? They didn't win 5 in a row, but at least in the salary cap era, right? And whatever. But that's something we could talk about in the offseason. But that got me thinking. Like they're not the clear cut. They are a wagon, and they're still stacked, and they're gonna be. But again, they're sitting in first, like you said, by 1 point. But they're not clear cut like they were last year, and like they were the year before. And like they were a couple of years, before that too. Like you kind of always knew that Tampa was going to be at least in the Eastern Conference Finals for the last arguably 5 seasons, 4 seasons if you want to go a little lower. But now it's to me that's not what they've been. They had the slow start. They've obviously sped up now, and they're holding first, but not by much. Like I'm excited to see and if anything, I think I'll kind of play my hand. I'm excited to see if anyone actually, if any team actually becomes a front runner, but I kind of don't want that. I like the total unknown of randomly at the big, Stanley Cup final between, let's just say, I don't know, the Florida Panthers versus the Anaheim Ducks. I'm not saying that's the Stanley Cup final, but
can you imagine?
Right?
That is a Stanley Cup final.
California versus Florida.
Yeah.
But
2 totally traditional hockey markets.
The way that they're going, if you keep riding a hot hand that long, maybe that happens. It's just those crazy matchups. Whereas, obviously, and I get it, I relished in this, for a decade, it was like, okay, well, it's going to be between the Hawks, the Kings, the Bruins, the Lightning,
Canucks. Canucks were
good.
Very good, but they kept running into Chicago and LA.
Right. And it was always just a mixed bag of the 5 teams maybe, right, for nearly a decade. And now we've gotten to a point where it's just it's a pick 'em.
Yeah, there are at least 10 teams that I could see making a serious run, and wouldn't be surprised to see them in there.
We're seeing the talent on display, and like I said, regular season means absolutely nothing when you hit the playoffs. So if you have the talent there, and it just is going to take the playoffs lighting that fire under your ass, we could see a random team in the Stanley Cup final this year. 2 random teams.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big one that I'm watching the second half is goaltenders. And one in particular that I've got my eye on is Tuukka Rask. because Tuukka Rask,
Oh
who has not been playing this
yeah.
season, he was injured off-season surgery.
Hmm.
His contract was up and Boston didn't re-sign him. He's coming back. He's been an emergency backup goaltender for Boston a couple times, so he can get some ice time in and some work in.
Yep.
And it sounds like tomorrow he is going to be signing an AHL deal with the Providence Bruins to add in some depth there, probably just a conditioning type of deal. And then he may get the call up. We may see Tuukka Rask back in Boston.
That's so weird. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
It's weird to think of Boston hockey without Rask.
Oh, I know. Like I understood why he stepped away for sure, but it was just like a wow, that was kind of sudden. Like,
Mhm.
I agree with you though because I also have been reading some things like, do we see Carey Price come back?
That's another one to watch. I think Montreal is probably too far out of it this year that until you know with beyond a shadow of a doubt that Price is 100%, you don't rush him back.
No.
And you can kind of let this year go and kind of move some assets around. Montreal last year was a team that in a non-pandemic year where we didn't have a Canada division, Montreal was not a playoff team last year. And like you talked about, teams getting hot at the right time, that was Montreal last year. They got hot at the right time. Carey Price absolutely dialed in and pretty much carried that team to the Cup final. Montreal's not doing that again this year. And they could move some pieces to kind of invest in some draft picks, get some support for Cole Caulfield and kind of build up their young guns there a bit. Two more that I've got my eye on as guys who may be on the move. Yaroslav Halak, backing up in Vancouver. He has a full no trade clause to his contract. So if he were to get moved, I mean, he would basically handpick the team. And he could probably go to the GM and say, hey, I'm willing to move to a contender for a team that is in need of some goaltending depth. A team like Minnesota. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see that. Another one as well, Joonas Korpisalo with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Elvis Merzlikins has taken over in net there. He's kind of got a lock on the starting job. Korpisalo not necessarily playing great this season. His numbers aren't quite where they need to be, but I wonder if a change of scenery might kind of spark Korpisalo's game as well. And knowing that he's going to be playing on a contending playoff team, I could see the move there. But man, Columbus's goaltending pipeline is just incredible. With Matisse Kivlenieks was in the mix there, and tragically with his accident this summer. But he was looking like someone who was knocking on the door of being a consistent NHLer. Danila Tarasov, who's in now, another player who really, really good goaltending pipeline that Columbus has built. There may not be a place for Korpisalo on that roster much longer, and he's in the final year of his deal. So he's someone that could be on the move there as well. I'm eager to see what, not just the trade deadline, but specifically the goaltenders at the trade deadline, what that one's going to bring. That's probably my top one that I'm keeping an eye on. Let's segue into another weekly segment that we do here, our weekly Wednesday night picks. Now, Joel, you're a couple of games behind because you did take that 1 week off. But by points percentage, if you want to look at it that way, you're still in first. I have the most overall wins, but Joel has me beat on the points on the tiebreaker there. And Luke Morris, our first ever guest picker and the first to win on a guest pick. So congratulations to Luke.
Luke.
Can't take that away. And not only that, but you know what game he picked to win? Arizona Coyotes plus 1.5. They were able to cover.
Wow.
A plus 1.5. He spent 10-15 minutes at the top of the show ripping Arizona for how they had run things and with the missing the stadium payments and just how bad that team has been for the last decade.
We didn't even talk about that in the last
segment. He picked them. And then he picked them to cover, and sure enough, they did. So Luke got that one right. So Congratulations, Luke, for just making all of us look bad with that
I'm
one.
gonna call sabotage, because even though I didn't make the show, you could have texted me and asked my picks.
You know, you're still ahead in points percentage. Don't be greedy here.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
Well, we'll give you a chance to get some points here this week because we have some very good games. And the trick here is it's not Wednesday. We're getting games on a Thursday. So we had so many games to pick from. We're making the picks on the Wednesday night instead of having the games be played on a Wednesday night. We're going to be back to our Tuesday schedule next week. Should make that clear now. We will be back on Tuesday. But for Wednesday night picks, it's turning into we're making them on a Wednesday for this week. So let's get right into it. Calgary Flames plus 120 at Tampa Bay Lightning minus 140. That game, a battle between two teams at the top of the standings. Tampa Bay Lightning 22-8-5, 49 points. They're on top of the league, but the Calgary Flames, they've been playing pretty well lately, 17-8-6 on the season. They are the best defensive team in the league this season, just 73 goals against. There is nobody else who is, or I take that back. Boston and Toronto have each allowed 76, but Calgary, best defensive team in the league. Is that a game where you may think about taking Calgary on the upset here?
I am thinking about it. Oh man, that's tough because Tampa's obviously on a heater. Calgary has enough to. Oh man, that is tough.
I picked some games this week that the odds are pretty close on this one.
I see. You know what? I'm gonna do it. It's not safe, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take Calgary on this one.
Tampa Bay has not been very good at home this year compared to what we've kind of gotten used to from them. They've gotten better recently. 11-3-3 at home, 11-5-2 on the road, but they, from a goals against standpoint, allow like half a goal more per game at home than on the road. So for a team like Calgary, where you have some guys who really can put the puck in the net, guys like Gaudreau and Mangiapane, Lindholm, like they've got a lot of guys who can produce offensively. Defensively, if Markstrom gets dialed in there early in net, I could see Calgary doing, pulling the upset. I think if only to be different, I'm going to take Tampa Bay, but I don't feel great about this one. I mean, I feel like this could be an overtime game. I feel like it could be a higher scoring game. Andrei Vasilevsky's been out for a little while. He's back now, but he was in COVID protocols for a while there. So still kind of not sure what we're going to get from him as he's coming back. He's the best goalie in the league when he's on his game, but with that kind of time off, is he going to be? I'm going to take Tampa Bay. I don't feel great about it. I feel like it's going to be an overtime game. I wouldn't put money line. I wouldn't put puck line on either team and try and pick, plus or minus a goal and a half to differentiate and win by 2.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Tampa Bay, but don't feel great about it.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Speaking of puck lines, we're gonna move into another tough one here. Winnipeg Jets plus 1.5 goals at minus 135 at the Colorado Avalanche. We've mentioned them a few times throughout the show. Colorado to win by 2 or Winnipeg to win or lose by 1?
I don't even have to think about this one, honestly, and maybe I'm going to regret it, but based on what I saw last night, Avalanche all the way. Avalanche all the way. I get it. We're not a good team. Winnipeg is. But they're on their hot streak. They're clearly getting right back into form. Also, as I said in my my takeaways from the game, Cale Makar's cheat code. So, with all that said, yeah, no, I think I could see the Avalanche taking this by at minus 1.5, so they have to win by 2, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I can see that happening.
Winnipeg is riding a 3-game winning streak right now, but they have played just 2 games since December 19th. And I know I can't really say very much there because the Wild have played 1, and that was the Winter Classic. But Winnipeg has seen a lot of games canceled along this stretch. I don't know what we're going to get out of Winnipeg coming out of the break. I mean, they're getting healthier, they're getting guys back, but again, a lot of time off in there. I think Colorado is probably the team that is closer to in their stride right now and playing to the level that they're capable of playing. Winnipeg as well. Like when they're on their game, that's a good Winnipeg team, and we can't sleep on Winnipeg in the second half here either.
No.
You know, Connor Hellebuck playing well, Pierre-Luc Dubois really starting to settle in with Winnipeg. That's a team that can make things interesting down the stretch. I think I'm with you here, though. I think Colorado by 2 tomorrow night is probably the play. Maybe like a 4-2 type of game.
I'm not saying it's going to be anything nuts, but 4-2, 5-3, something like that.
Yeah, if the let me take a look at the lines here on that and see what the over under is here. Over under on that game, they've got it set at 6.5. I would lean to the under just a little bit. I think 4-2 is probably about what we're looking at. I'm going to take Colorado too. I'm with you on that one. And then our final pick of the night, New York Rangers, a battle of first place teams.
Ooh, this is a good one.
At Vegas minus 155. We kind of talked about the injuries with Vegas. No Mark Stone in the lineup. Eichel still probably about a month off from coming back. Rangers hanging in there without Artemi Panarin. That's a team as well. Rangers in first place. Joel, who you got in this one?
So Zibanejad just put up a hat trick I think it was actually the first game back of the whole COVID 2-week break. He puts up a hat trick.
Mm-hmm. And I should mention this as well. Panarin, it lists his expected return as tomorrow, so he may be back in.
Yeah, and I think off that alone, because Mark Stone's still out for a little while too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Off that alone, I'm going with the Rangers on this one. The Rangers are so not inconsistent. Obviously, they're obviously consistently winning, of course, but like they're just so inconsistent on who they beat. Like they can go off and just rattle off 5 wins in a row and beat great teams all the way down to the bottom feeders in between those 5 games in a row or whatever, but then you'll see them lose to bottom feeder teams, and they've just been so all over the place. There's no like real consistency to who they're beating and who they're losing to. But again, with all that said, they're consistently enough to score, be winning. Shesterkin is, I've been loving him. He is helping my fantasy team sit atop first place in both my leagues right now. So I got to go with the Rangers on this one. My boy Panarin coming back too. I think he's gonna. This won't count towards our score, but I think he's gonna factor in and get at least a goal tomorrow night.
I have really, really struggled with what I'm going to do on this one because I'm looking at Vegas's injury report, and there's just so many names on it, and guys you don't know if they're going to be in and out of the lineup. Robin Lehner, lower body injury.
Yeah.
Unlikely to return for Tuesday's game, but expected return is tomorrow. Mark Stone, undisclosed, maybe back tomorrow. If Lehner can't go, Laurent Brossoit, undisclosed day-to-day, wasn't in the lineup Tuesday, expected return is tomorrow. And no Pacioretty in there either. But Vegas just keeps finding ways to win. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. This is a good Vegas Golden Knights team. Vegas has been good to me in this pick segment. I'm going to ride Vegas one more time. I'm going to take Vegas at home. Again, give us something different here. So you and I have 2 out of 3 different this week. I'm going to go Vegas. I think this is going to be, if you're on the East Coast, it's a game worth staying up for, even if you're not a Rangers fan. And if you're on the West Coast, tune into that one. There's a lot of good hockey on the slate for tomorrow, and maybe flip back and forth between the Avs and Vegas just to keep an eye on some of those West Coast teams. But that's going to be a really, really good game tomorrow night.
Is that one on ESPN Plus by chance? Do we know?
That's a good question. Let's look that one up.
Because if it is, I think that's
it is on ESPN Plus at 9:00, 9:00 Eastern.
Looks like it's time to subscribe.
There you go. ESPN Plus, you got another subscriber in Joel here. So just to kind of recap the picks, Joel taking the Rangers. I am taking the Vegas Golden Knights. We are both in agreement about Colorado Avalanche winning by 2. And then Joel took the Calgary Flames. I'm taking Tampa Bay. I went all home teams. That's chalk. It's kind of weak.
We both don't feel good about this one. I don't feel
No,
good about
they're
taking the Flames,
close.
and you don't feel good about taking Tampa. So I don't.
Joel or HP saying don't do it. Don't subscribe to Disney Plus if you want to watch the Hawks. Yeah, because they do the blackouts in the local markets with ESPN Plus.
Oh yeah,
so
that's right.
You could get ESPN Plus and not watch the Hawks, or
they're not on
as HP found out, subscribing to ESPN Plus, and then he couldn't watch the Minnesota Wild. So
yeah, no, I know they do it here. He's right. That's a good point, HP. I mean, there's also a very this isn't a simple solution to that, but I tested this solution out last night. They were on ESPN Plus. If they're on ESPN Plus, I'll just go to the game.
There you go.
If they're home, obviously.
Right. That's a catch.
But that's also going to get expensive.
So those are our final picks of the week. Joel, your first show back in about a month, and I think it's only appropriate that for the first time in 2022, we are going to give you 2 minutes for roughing. Our favorite segment, 2 minutes of uninterrupted time to rough up whatever topic you want. If this is your first time tuning into Pod Snipe Celly, thank you for joining us tonight. This is a segment we like to do where we just let it all out, get everything off our chest, therapeutic, and we can talk about whatever topic we want. We've talked food, we've talked sports, we've talked traffic. We have gone through so many different topics already. We've still got so much more that we want to cover. But Joel, 2 minutes for roughing. Are you ready to go, sir?
Yes, but before that, I will say, again, thank you for tuning in to everybody. And for this 2 minutes for roughing, if it becomes your, what am I saying? If it is your favorite, come on, it's your favorite segment on any podcast out there. If you're listening, come on now. Anyway, send some comments in, text us if you have our numbers, tweet at us, post on our Facebook, whatever you got to do. Comment on something, you know, if you want
let me go ahead and throw this up.
There you go. Yeah,
at
we have our
Pod
Twitter
Celly.
account. If
Remind
you want
everybody to join on Twitter.
Yeah, if you want to hear our takes on something and we deem it, you know, a short enough rant to put it in 2 minutes for roughing, we'll do it. It doesn't have to be something we're passionate about. We can be your voice too.
Absolutely. If you've got something you want us to rant about, open it up. We'll do it. Tell us what you want us to rant about. We'll do it.
Not to mention, if you're sitting out there and you're like, well, come on, you guys have done sports ones for like the last 5 episodes. Like, get back to the pizza or get back to something random, traffic. Mm-hmm. Tell us.
Yeah.
You drive this show, not us.
Absolutely. We do this show for the people, man.
With that said, I could go for a while on this.
You need a sip of water or something before you start.
Nah, I'll be all right.
All right. Atta kid. Out there like a grinder.
Absolutely.
We'll start you up here. 3, 2, 1.
With the recent trade today for the Hawks, Alex Nylander for Sam Lafferty, it got me it started grinding my gears up again about Stan Bowman, specifically his trades that he's made for the Blackhawks over the course of time. And it infuriates me, and I could talk about this for an entire episode. Maybe I will one of these days. But Stan Bowman has pretty much completely I make the joke he sold our souls to the devil, and now we're paying the price as of now. And it really happened through trades. Yes, I get it. He helped create depth to win us 3 Stanley Cups. I'm not complaining about that. What I am complaining about are the trades he's made. He traded away Artemi Panarin. I'm going to go through some examples. Artemi Panarin to get Brandon Saad back. And that segues into he traded Brandon Saad away in the first place because he had this crazy lust for Artem Anisimov that he just had to have him. None of it worked out, and it completely kneecapped us. And you see these guys go on to other teams and become all-stars. They were all-stars on our team, but we trade them away because we want to bring back the band, or we have our eye on someone because Stan Bowman wants it to happen. He fires one of the greatest coaches to ever coach the game in NHL, in the history of the NHL, because he wants to be a puppet master. There are so many trades I could go through that Stan Bowman has completely screwed our organization over. And I'm not going to go into signings. This is all about trades. And there are so many, and I can go all the way back to him trading away Dustin Byfuglien and Brent Sopel for Jeremy Morin and some guy I've never even heard of, Marty Reasoner. Like I can go through these trades, and one of these episodes I will. But Stan Bowman is one of the biggest abominations, even with success, to hit Chicago sports. Not more so than the Bears, but Stan Bowman's trades have definitely hurt us more than helped us, and I will never not be pissed about it.
There you go. 2 minutes for roughing up Stan Bowman. And I think you didn't even get into as well.
Oh, there's plenty I didn't get into, and this is like that 2 minutes for roughing was a tease. Tune into us if you're so amazing and inclined. Tune into our episodes in the off season because we have a lot of good ideas for that stuff, and this is one of them because I actually have a list. No, that we have a list of that, but I literally have a list up on my screen that I'm keeping of all of the horrible trades he's made. It's a top 7 list. I mean, I didn't make it. I found it, but I'm marking it down so I can have a list of it and everything like that. But it's like the top 7 worst trades he made, but I don't have 2 minutes to do it. I can eventually in a different episode elaborate on what happened after that too. Like this was just to anyone listening, that probably just sounded like sour grapes, but I hope I pissed some people off. There's probably some Stan Bowman truthers out there. I was a Stan Bowman truther for the longest time.
You were.
And I still, to an extent, I still, I'm not going to take credit away from the guy. Like we got 3 Stanley Cups. We were a dynasty in the 2010s decade. Like that's awesome. I'm thankful. Like sell our soul for 3 Stanley Cups. I'd do it all over again.
But again, though, how much of that was work that he actually did with building that team? Because I mean,
it was Dale Talon. Dale Talon set up and I didn't have 2 minutes to say this, so I guess this is going longer than 2 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm breaking the rules. Call it a 5-minute major.
Okay.
So that was the one thing I didn't want to get into because it would have taken away from the tangent in the 2 minutes for roughing. If you take the time to analyze it, which I now have and I'm still doing, Dale Talon put all the pieces in play. Who was the core 7? Yes, there were 7 players that were the core of that mini dynasty that we had. The dynasty that we had. It was Taves, Kane, Seabrook, Keith, Hjalmarsson, Sharp, Hossa. And then eventually the 8th was Crawford, but he was for 2 of the 3 instead of all 3.
Again, Crawford drafted before that dynasty run, before
exactly
Bowman took over as GM.
Exactly. He was thrusted in. Did he earn it? Sure. But I think it's because Daddy was in the organization too, Scotty. That had some weight. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. Dale Talon did all of the drafting of the 8 guys I just mentioned. He did the drafting and or the trading and or the free agent signing of all those guys. And without those 8 guys, those 3 Stanley Cups don't happen. I don't care how deep the team is. So again, we'll get into it. I want to have an episode on where you and I just go off.
We'll do it.
Like we can
We'll have an hour for roughing up all of the bad trades that our teams have made in the last decade. Because let me tell you, Victor Rask for Nino Niederreiter, Charlie Coyle for Ryan
finally gone. Victor
no, he's
Rask.
not. He's on the taxi squad. He's off the big club, but he's on the taxi squad. They put him through waivers.
Well,
they put him through waivers. Nobody claimed him. He's on the taxi squad.
Okay.
So nobody picked him up. So he's still with the Wild for now.
Okay. All right. Well,
so
sorry.
Sorry to my buddy Hoppy who can't get an Iowa Wild Rask jersey just to mess with people because that's the type of thing he would do. That's Hoppy, if you're watching, we're thinking of you, buddy.
I had one more hot take I wanted to end the show on.
Oh, go for it. We got like 2 minutes. Go for it.
I know. I want to get you angry before we leave because then you can stew on it.
Of course you do.
This Winter Classic were the 2 ugliest jerseys I have seen in any outdoor game.
Oh, you can get all the way out of here. You can get all the way out of here.
There's my hot take. I missed my hot takes. I missed all of our listeners, all probably.
I'm going to do 2 minutes for roughing next week, and it's going to be ripping your terrible take on those jerseys. They were good jerseys, and I will stand by that. HP backing me up here.
No. Get the Minnesota truthers out of here. Help me out. Oh, I know. I saw it. I saw it. I saw it. Help me out here, viewers. Come. Yes, thank you.
Get me angry. Guess what? I am, and that's the note that we're going to end this show on. We're going to keep it positive, but it's an angry positive. We'll leave it that way. Thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. Everybody who commented throughout the show. We're having a lot of fun. We're 10 episodes deep now. We're officially
we hit double digits.
Established double digits. Thank you to everybody who tuned in to episode 10. Thank you to those of you who are watching back later on YouTube, to those who are tuning in on iTunes and Spotify. We have our episodes up generally about a half hour after the show ends live. This week we were on a Wednesday. Next week we will be back to our usual Tuesday schedule. So be sure to tune in Tuesday, 8 o'clock next week. Thank you again to Noob Sports and the Sports 2.0 Network for making this all possible. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter at PodSnipeCelly. But that is it for our show tonight. So Joel, say one last goodbye to the people.
I missed you guys. I hope you missed me. And if you didn't, sorry, I'm back for the long run.
All right, that is it for our show. For Joel, I'm Dan. Good night, everybody.